if you're really structured in the preparation, if you're studying regularly, you're gonna master these concepts. But you have to master them before you practice. This is another mistake I see many people doing. Okay, so my main suggestion would be structured. For my fourth tip, I would actually tell people to practice in the real conditions, and I think this is very, very, very important as well.
So hi Antonio, it's so great to have you as a speaker.
Hello, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to know your journey, how you drafted a top-notch application and that you achieved a competitive GMAT score. So let's dive right into the session. So to begin with, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, great, of course. Well, so my name is Antonio. Now I'm 22 years old. I'm studying HEC. I'm in the second year of HEC, and I'm working for MiM-ESSAY, actually helping applicants getting into the top 10 business schools in the world. I have a very good success rate with them, and I've actually came back to MiM-ESSAY to work there because they helped me get into HEC when I was an applicant myself. So it was a truly great experience to actually close this cycle right now. And now my goal for the medium long term would be to be a consultant in strategic management.
Okay, that's great. So let's go a bit in flashback. So how was your undergraduate journey like? Like, do you come from a business or a non-business background?
Yeah, so I have a pretty curious and peculiar background because I've actually graduated from political science, economics, and history, and in the Sorbonne, so in France. So in a way, I already knew the French system. So this was it's easier for me in that sense. But yeah, it was not a business background, so I just felt I needed business fundamentals. So for example, supply chain management, strategy, etc., so I could actually be a consultant in management.
Right. And like when you came across, when it was finally time to apply to a master's program, so what made you apply to an MIM program? Why not any other master's in management or any other master's degree in the management discipline?
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, I think the MIM program really prepares you to a wide range of options in the business sector. So for example, if I took a MFin, so a Master in Finance or Financial Engineering, I would be kind of, I would have to stick with the financial sector or something like that. And I wasn't 100% sure of what I want to do. I had an idea that I wanted to be a strategic consultant, but I wasn't sure. And when that's the case, I think the MIM fits perfectly with one's goals because it really opens all the doors you need. The career centers of the schools are really fabulous, and you meet a lot of different people who can actually tell you about their jobs. So this is exactly what I did. That's how I actually decided to be a consultant.
Okay, great. So how did you prepare to achieve a stellar GMAT score?
For the GMAT or for the application?
For GMAT.
GMAT. Okay, so for the GMAT, it was actually a very long and painful process, to be quite frank. I actually took my first GMAT, I think 3 months after starting it. And honestly, I wasn't fully prepared as I should be. I had prepared first with a few practice tools. You can always find them on the internet, and I tried to be as cheap as possible. So I tried not to spend too much. I think it was a mistake because there are a lot of paid tools that actually help you accelerate your preparation and help you further preparing. But then again, I think the main problem with my GMAT preparation, especially at first, because then I actually learned how to take the GMAT and how to prepare for it in the best way as possible. And I think the biggest problem was that I actually wasn't systematic. And people have to understand that the GMAT is truly a business test. Everything is business related. Even the verbal part tries to teach you how to deal with business related questions, even if it is semantics. Or the logic of business. And this is very important. I think when you get that, then you understand, okay, so how do I succeed in a business related test is actually acting as a businessman or a businesswoman. And that's what I did. The second part of my preparation, I actually understood that I have to have a backlog with the questions I got right, with the questions I got wrong, especially. Then every once a week or once every 2 weeks, I had to actually look back at the questions I had actually done, where I went wrong, and how could I prepare even further. And I had to have a standard, a very high standard for myself. And this is very hard for anyone to do, to look at the questions that I got right and think, okay, but did I get right because I was actually prepared, I was fully sure of my answer, or I got it right because it was an educated guess. And why do you have to do that? Because actually your effort compounds, especially for the GMAT, because you have to do it for months and months. Of course, there are people who for 1 month, 2 months, they get great students, but this is not the case for more than 95, maybe even 98% of people. So your effort compounds. What you do today is going to be a linear progression towards your goal, and that's why you need to structure your preparation. I think this would be my main advice to people wishing to prepare. Structure your preparation, have a calendar with milestones, break your main target goal into main steps, and then when you really learn the fundamentals, which is essential because you need to learn the fundamentals, and there are basic fundamentals that you need to learn for the GMAT. When you do them, then you can actually start just chunking practice tests, exams, practice questions, etc., etc. But even still, you still need to have a backlog to actually understand how to improve and ultimately get to your target score.
So could you share some specific pointers and tips for the upcoming students that they can use to prepare for their GMAT exam?
Okay, so the first one I already told it, I think. Be structured, be painfully structured. Especially there are many candidates who want to be consultants, and in every consulting interview, a big criteria for actually approving you or rejecting is your structure. And you can start with the GMAT, and it really helps because one of the main ways of actually achieving big goals is actually chunking them down into small actionable steps. And it's the same thing with the GMAT. So that's the first thing. Second thing, which is not fully GMAT related, but it's important, because normally you have the option between the GRE and the GMAT. And many people, they just choose one just because they feel like it, or because maybe one of their target schools only accepts the GMAT or only accepts the GRE. Only accepting the GRE is pretty rare, but still. And I wouldn't recommend it. I recommend that you actually take them both at first. Take a mock exam, an official mock exam. Maybe not an official one because you have limited ones. Anyway, that's another discussion. But take both, then see with which one you're most comfortable with, and then you can actually start preparing. But this is a very important step because many people are there getting the GMAT, and they could be achieving greater results with the other exam. So this will be my second tip. Actually, try to see which one you're most comfortable with before preparing, because when you start preparing, you have, let's say, a fixed cost that you have to dilute in your preparation, and then you're stuck with. So that's my second tip. My third tip is actually knowing the fundamentals before taking a lot of practice questions. And this is very important as well because you have a few concepts that you need to master for the GMAT. Maybe it's not a few, maybe there are many concepts, but it is a limited set of concepts. Okay, so it is a limited set of concepts that maybe in 1-2 months or maybe 3-4 months you're gonna master. Okay, if you're really structured in the preparation, if you're studying regularly, you're gonna master these concepts. But you have to master them before you practice. This is another mistake I see many people doing. They actually try to start practicing before they know all the bases, and then they kind of have to go back, and then they automatically lose structure, and they lose the linear progress that the GMAT has or allows you to have. So like my third tip. For my fourth tip, I would actually tell people to practice in the real conditions. And I think this is very, very, very important as well. And this was a big mistake in my GMAT preparation when I first started. I was actually practicing and having mock exams in my bed, say after lunch, and I was really relaxed. I had a small paper, but I wasn't really using it to actually take notes from the questions and things like that. So it wasn't really the real GMAT. It wasn't a real mock exam. It was just an exam that had the same algorithm, but I wasn't prepared for the real test conditions. Which brings me to my fifth tip. Because if you have prepared in the real conditions, you'll be way more prepared for the real tests. But then again, fifth tip, you need, when you have already prepared everything correctly, you have looked for the right exam for you, then you have prepared in a very structured manner, you have a backlog, you've taken the best tools out there to actually help you, or even you have a consultant, a GMAT consultant, then it's just a matter of mindset. And this is really true. I thought it was fake. I'm really skeptic about it. Normally, I don't think that a mindset can actually change your score. Either you know, either you don't. GMAT is really a resistance kind of test. So at the end of the day, the last maybe 20 points, sometimes 30 points, they're just a matter of mindset. So just to give you an example, I was constantly scoring 730, 740, 750 in my mock exams. This was the standard for me. And this was the time when I told myself, okay, now is the time to actually do the real GMAT. So I took it twice again after constantly scoring 730, 740, 750, and I actually had 710. And it wasn't good enough for my goals because I wanted to get into I didn't know if I wanted to get into MIMs or MBAs, so I was thinking I needed more than 730. I had a 700, so when I took the 710, I actually canceled my school. But it was really frustrating, not just because of the score, because at the end of the day, the score got me to 700 is maybe the minimum that you need to get into the top 3, let's say. So it was good, but still it was very frustrating because it wasn't my goal. And I think a big part of it was, first, the fact that I wasn't preparing in the real conditions, and secondly, because I didn't have the mindset of, okay, I've done my best to prepare, now it's the time for the real GMAT score. Let me just structure the questions during the real GMAT as I would in the mock exams. And so my last tip is trying to be as relaxed as possible and try to mock the structure that you had in your mock exams, in your practice questions, in the real GMAT score. Because you're going to see that if you're structured, naturally you're going to have a method for solving almost 100% of the questions. But then in the real GMAT score, because you're stressed, or because you don't feel like it, or maybe because you just forget to actually use the method that you had in the real score, to use the method that got you to achieving 730, 740 in the mock exams, and then you're gonna lose points. So just try to mimic the same mind states that you had when taking the mock exams during the real GMAT score. This would be my last tip.
Yeah, and like coming to the applications part, like HEC being one of the top MIM schools, obviously you need to have a very meticulously drafted application. So how did you go about preparing your application material, like essays, LORs, and everything else?
Actually, I followed MiM-ESSAY's method. I just did a first brainstorming process overall to just dive deep into my profile, to understand my strengths, my weaknesses, where I should improve, where I should actually insist on, and how to structure all that in my head. Then I had an essay call with MiM-ESSAY's consultants. Rohit actually helped me actually put this structure and these experiences into words to actually compose the essays with the illustrating experiences for each and every essay, and then this helped me get in for the essays. Then for the law, it was really about, because I mean, many recommenders, they don't want you to write for them. I had one of such recommender, so I couldn't do much about it, and many others, they actually asked for you helped them a lot in writing the letter of recommendations. And I could use MIM essays, workbooks, so I could actually have a great lore as well. That would be a good piece of the puzzle for my whole application, because it's very important as well. You can't treat the law as if it were a separate part of your application. It really helps admissions committee have a holistic view of your profile. It's what they all say. And so yeah, I just follow a very structured method, and it really worked. And then I just went back and forth with Rohit, editing my essays, giving me a few suggestions. I was giving him suggestions as well. Maybe I could write it like this, maybe I could phrase it like this. Wouldn't I have another experience to actually illustrate this point, etc., etc. And it worked pretty well. And then same thing for the mock interviews. He just told me about the main types of questions you could have in mock interviews, and how should you have it. I did. I put on the work, and it worked.
And like, it would be really great if you could share some specific factors that really played a major role in your application.
I'm sorry, specific what?
Some specific factors that played a major role in your application.
Okay, so as I told you, I mean, I don't know if you're talking about factors in my application's crafting, or if you're talking about factors in my...
Yeah, like on the whole, like what specific factors, like be it your experiences or academics, whatever you would like to say.
Okay.
Yeah, like what were the main crux that really helped you build up a great application?
Okay. Well, so for the application crafting, I think I got through that as well. So it was really be structured, and I think following my essays structure was very important to me. And then for the profile, actually, to be quite frank, I had a great academic profile. I had great grades. This helps a lot. I have a good GMAT score, good enough GMAT score. I had a lot of 2 or 3 internship experiences as well. This helps. But even when you don't, and this is important, this is why I don't talk too much about this, because I had a great profile, so this really helps. But even when you feel like you don't have a great profile, you can still take skills that you need from your experiences that can be used to actually leverage your application. So for example, if you have worked in a student club and you had to make some data analysis, this is a very important skill to have. Or if you were a captain of a football team, or even if you're just a member of a football team, it shows discipline, it shows resilience sometimes. So you can really, when you know the skills that you have to showcase for the application, you can actually put them into words and be able to have a great application, even if you don't feel like you have amazing experiences, even if you don't have 2 or 3 internships, even if you don't have stellar grades. And that's our job, the MiM-ESSAY.
Right. Like, were you successful in concealing any of your weaknesses in your application? Like, did you mention any of those? Maybe my
main weakness was that I didn't have a big brand on my CV. So I had okay brands, but they maybe didn't know them, especially because they were from the brands were from Brazil. So I think the HEC admissions committee didn't know. So once again, my main job, the main work I had to put on was actually to translate the skills and to really describe my experiences at these internships, so that it would be readable, so that it would be understandable for the admissions committee. And I think regardless of your weaknesses, either it may be academic weaknesses or professional weaknesses, or even let's say even personal weaknesses sometimes. So for example, if you can't really, you're hard on interviews and you can't really talk about yourself, things like that, you can always find a way through. You just have to understand what they really want, and they really have an holistic view of your profile. So when you understand what they want, the skills you have to showcase, the structure that you need to show that you have, the discipline you need to show that you have, etc., then it's way easier to actually not hide, but compensate your weaknesses and really put forward your strengths.
And like, before we can wrap the session on the same note, like, can you suggest something for the upcoming applicants to help them draft a great application?
Okay, so my main suggestion would be structured. Have a good structure to actually prepare for your application. Of course, if you need help with it, we're here from MiM-ESSAY. But overall, if you don't do it with us, think about what would be the best structure for you to actually do your application. Just don't go on, okay, I'm gonna do a random brainstorming here, then I'm gonna just try to write a first essay. Then you end up procrastinating and you don't write the first essay. Then 1 week before the application deadline, you just maybe buy your services because you're desperate, and then you won't be as good as you could be. So overall, way before starting the application process, just really take your time, put everything in a worksheet. That's what we do. Put everything maybe even just in a Word document, and have a structure, have milestones. So the MIM process is just the process of making decisions. Sometimes in companies, you have to break them down into small actionable steps, and then when you have the steps, you have the milestones, you're way better off to actually prepare and to actually craft a great application.
Yeah, so like this was really a great suggestion. So I think with such great insights and learning from you, we can wind up the session over here. So like thank you, Antonio, for joining us and making time to share your thoughts with us.
Well, thank you a lot, Shivani. It was truly a pleasure. I really hope I was able to maybe help a few people with a few tips.
Yeah, really, you really did a great job, and I'm sure your words would be really beneficial for the large number of applicants.